everyone, welcome back to the In My Twenties podcast with me, your host, Bookie Smart Sulaiman. Today is a very important and special day because we have the one, the only, Mr. Sulaiman.
Hello.
So my husband is joining me on the podcast today. Are you excited?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about navigating relationships in your 20s because we've been together before we were in our 20s and now we're married and creating our own family. So very excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know if you let me know if you want to see Mr. Sulaiman back. My mom used to say I shouldn't call you Mr. Sulaiman. She used to go, "This is your sweetheart, okay? He's not Mr. Sulaiman. Like, this is your dearest sweetheart." So my dearest sweetheart, welcome to the podcast.
You can guess which one I prefer.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so for those of you who might not know, we have been together for 8 years this year, right? Yes. So Timster asked me to be his girlfriend.
Oh, what she says.
Timster asked me to be his girlfriend October 2015.
That's correct.
Yes. And then we got married. Well, traditionally married December 21, and then legally married in 2022. So we've been together for about 8 years this year and married for about a year.
So we got married over a period of roughly 6 months.
From being engaged.
For being engaged, 3 ceremonies,
Yeah.
and 3 countries.
Yes. So I got engaged in May, had a December trad, which was incredible.
Yeah, which was great.
And then we had...
Despite COVID
and like restrictions in Lagos. And then we got back to London and then had our civil court wedding in February. Yep. 2022, and then a couple months after we had our beautiful Italian summer wedding in June in Italy.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, so we've been together a long time. We've been together and known each other since we were kids. Well,
yeah, I'd say so.
So in your words, talk me through the timeline of our relationship.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember the first time you saw me?
Yeah. We met in 6th form. We both went to Bridge House in Ikoyi, Lagos. Mm-hmm. And I think I met you on the 3rd day of school.
Yeah, it was a Wednesday.
I remember that. Yeah, okay, so that's like the initial meeting.
Any first impressions?
Yeah, it was really weird the way we met. So basically we had to sign up for classes at the time. Mm-hmm. One of the classes I was going to sign up for was economics. And basically the guy to sign me up had given me some riddle to solve. I was trying to prove a point that you need to think differently to be a good economist. Don't be a linear thinker.
Yeah.
So basically he gave me a riddle to solve and I tried to solve the riddle. I think I'm relatively smart.
He's pretty smart.
And I couldn't solve the riddle. So I was, it got my attention. I was like, why can't I solve this? So basically I was standing by some windowsill just looking at the riddle, and there was Bookie like a few meters away. I was just like, oh, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Do you mind if I take a look? And I was like, I've been trying to solve this for like 2 hours or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure, take a look. And she takes a look, and within like a minute, she was like, oh, have you tried this and tried that? And it worked. And I was like, who is this girl? Yeah, so the first thing that attracted me to you was the fact that you were smart and you could solve something that I couldn't.
Which is really how anyone gets Tim's attention. You have to... I feel like
anyone.
A lot of people get your attention by... I think you need to be impressed by them. Before you're like, oh, who's this person? Like, you have to have done something interesting or something that just catches your attention, right? So I think for us, that was it. I solved this question, which is interesting because I wasn't even going to choose math as a subject. And it was after that, and you were like, are you doing math?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not doing math. I'm doing business. And then
I was like, oh, why wouldn't you do math? Like,
Yeah. And so I did math because...
And she's like, I remember why you said you wouldn't do it. I was like, no, there's no such. It's never really difficult. You just need
I
just need to know how the strategy to solve it.
Oh my god.
Difficulty exists in the mind, Nothing's ever really that hard.
Which is true.
It's just a mindset, I guess.
Yeah. And so
Oh yeah.
we leave Bridge House. So in Bridge House, we're friends for about a year. We have a bit of a rocky friendship, would you say?
Uh, what would you say was rocky? I don't think it was
There were
rocky.
periods of time we didn't talk. Well, one period.
Oh, what, for like 2 or 3 days or something. So
Yeah,
yeah, I can't remember why though, but I remember that day we weren't talking and
even for like a month.
oh really?
Easter.
What happened? But I do remember one day we weren't talking, or I can't remember why, or what, but
Mhm.
I think it was picture day generally, and you came to school and you'd done makeup. I was like, we're not talking, and she's perfectly fine, like she doesn't even seem bothered, and I was like, okay, clearly she doesn't care. Little did I know it was quite the opposite, but
Just killing me inside.
yeah, it was fun, lots of fun. We did a lot together. We were very fortunate to be great friends early on. We studied a lot together. We
Yeah,
were
Sarah
actually,
taught me math and how to be good at math, which helped me
yeah,
pass
I thought you could
math.
do it. So,
Yeah,
I thought it was
we were good
possible.
study buddies.
We started some initiative, TTIN,
Like a passion project
some passion project.
within like 2 months of knowing each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what do we want to change in the
Yeah,
world?
let's make an impact in
Yeah,
our
something
generation.
along. Well, I didn't think about it that way, but I was like, yeah. So changing something, or just
Yeah.
as young people, what do you want to? Yeah, what do you want to do? So we tried to do some initiative, which was interesting.
And then after Bridge House, we had built a really like solid friendship, and then we went off to unis and went off to two different universities, and then what happened?
Yeah, so we went to two different unis, we're further away from each other. At the time, I was speaking with a good friend who kind of advised me and said, you know what, you guys you're friends, but everyone says that you're kind of together, but you're not really
You're
together.
more than friends.
You're clearly more than friends, but
Yeah.
it's like what's going on here?
Which we weren't. We were really good friends.
I guess we're good friends. And I don't guess, I know we're good friends. But also I think I wasn't ready to be more than friends.
I was
Um,
also in a relationship.
you were in a relationship, and I think I kind of said, don't feel like you need to break up with whoever you're with for me. Like, I'm not promising you anything. If you do that, I'm not going to do anything. Like, don't hold me to anything, basically.
Yeah.
How did you take that? Were you surprised to hear that? Were you like, who says that?
I was like, who says
Yeah,
that? Right? Temperature is very different from anyone I've ever met, let alone any man that I've ever met. I think.
hopefully good, different.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. I mean, I married you, so I think it
Um,
worked out. Yeah, I was just a bit confused, right? Like, are we like, do we really like each other? Are we going to be in a relationship? I think a lot of people from school thought that we were going to end up together. So even when
oh,
we got engaged, we got a lot of, oh, we saw this coming. Oh, we always knew that this is meant to be. And, all of those things. So I'm in a relationship, right? When we get to uni in Bridge House.
mhm.
And then we had this very difficult conversation about Timothy basically didn't really want to be friends anymore. He couldn't be my friend
Well,
anymore.
I mean, there were two difficult conversations. I don't know how many years apart. I think the first one we kind of said, clearly, this is more than a friendship. But yeah, I
At
don't know.
some point, it became
I
more
don't
than a
know. I don't
friendship.
know how
Yeah.
ideal this is. Let's kind of cut it off and stop talking, or just, to which I
Uh-huh.
think Book was very shocked.
Yeah, because you were my really good friend, and I could talk to you about anything. But I guess also being in a relationship at that point, I was like, this is maybe not healthy for my own relationship to be as close as we were. And so we decided to break things off. And then shortly after,
We decided.
actually,
Oh yeah, I think we agreed ultimately.
yeah,
Yeah, because I was like, yeah,
can't do this anymore.
yeah, I'm not. I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we break things off, like we're not speaking as friends. And then
Or anything else.
couple months after, I then break up with the person I was with at the time. And then it took me,
Oh, was it that same year?
was it not? Oh no, it was the year
The year
after.
after.
Yeah, so Timothy and I hadn't spoken for eight,
Nearly
nine
a year.
months. Yeah, nearly a year. And then within that year, I realized a lot of things about myself. I was 18 or so. And so I break up with this guy, and then a couple months after, I think, I call you, and then we hit things off again. We start talking. And shortly after, about another year after that, actually,
Uh-huh.
then you asked me to be your girlfriend.
Mm.
Yeah. And remember what I said?
So you said no.
Yeah, I did.
To which I was then now surprised.
Because I
Um,
just thought we had been back as friends and, you know, just talking and taking things slow. It had been a year of like rekindling a friendship and I was enjoying it. And I was like, oh, do I want to be in a relationship 1 year after, being
coming out
broken up?
of a relationship.
Yeah. So I initially said no. And then I said yes after.
I think if Wiki can be such a tease sometimes, or very dramatic, um, even with prom, I remember asking her to prom like a couple of times.
You did ask me to prom a couple of times.
And,
Yeah.
I wonder why I continued.
I don't know why you
In
continued.
my
Every
usual
time he would
manner,
ask me, I would like tease and say no. And he would ask me again and I'd say no. And then he'd ask me again.
I'm actually surprised thinking back as to the fact that I kind of persisted and continued.
Yeah.
I think normally, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, maybe
I
that
don't
shows
know.
something. He kind of said no initially. Sometimes when I think back, I think that was the right thing to say.
Hmm.
I think that there's a lesson there in terms of sticking to your guns, in terms of not saying that ultimately we won't have, been together or started a relationship or whatever. In hindsight, sometimes when I think back, I do think that was the right thing to say.
That's
So,
very interesting.
but I'm not sure if I've
You
told you
never
that
told me
before.
that before.
So
Interesting.
word for the ladies out there, sometimes genuinely go with your gut and
Yeah.
don't shift it
Yeah.
for anyone.
So let's talk a little bit about like when we then started dating. So you had asked me to be your girlfriend,
Hmm.
but at that point, you guys, Simcha really didn't even believe in the whole boyfriend girlfriend thing. Like he didn't like labels, and
Hmm.
so he didn't even really. He didn't really want to hold my hand. So we're, a young Christian couple, by the way. So Timsha was very firm with like boundaries. Okay, this guy didn't want to hold my hand. I couldn't, hug him for too long, anything like that. But let's talk about like dating. So at the point where we were like exclusive, right? So we're like
Hmm.
committed to each other and we were dating. Did you know or were you planning at that time to marry me? I mean, we were 19 and got engaged at 24.
Hmm.
So about 5 years before. So when we started dating, did you see marriage in the mix or was it like, okay, I'm dating this girl because I really like her and I think there's potential or what?
So I think to put my answer to that question in context, I was fortunate to start a relationship with God very early on. And what that means is, as early as 13, 14, I knew a lot of things. And I always used to say to people, that God is my friend. And I genuinely meant it. What that meant is I knew a lot of things. I started speaking to God and God speaking to me early on as well. So that framed my outlook generally, life wise, relationship wise, marriage wise, so many things. Um, and as a result of that, I kind of matured slightly faster than I might have otherwise. So yes, at the time I did say let's start a relationship. I knew I had conviction
Mm-hmm.
about having a permanent relationship with you, and that's why I thought it worthwhile to start the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? If I didn't have that conviction, I likely wouldn't have said let's start.
So yeah, Timster is definitely not the kind of person who would have wanted to be dating for dating's sake, right? You wanted to be dating for the purpose of getting married.
I mean, it's two things. Like I said, I knew a number of things, and so for example, even if I ever thought I'd want to date for dating's sake,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one time I was in university and I thought about it. The way God put it to me was this: what it's like a plane taking off only to land.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you're starting a relationship with someone, it's not really going anywhere.
So
You
what's the
know,
point?
kind of have mercy on them. Like, don't be like, they may not know that,
Right,
but you clearly know that.
right, right.
Be a bit mature about it, or don't, what's the
Mm-hmm.
point? So I had that view very early, and so yeah, I felt, I weren't kind of taking up just the land. I thought,
Yeah.
we'll fly for,
Yeah,
as
I'm glad
advanced
one
as
of us had
space.
that. I definitely didn't have my conviction about marrying him until a bit later. But seeing as we're talking about like navigating relationships in your 20s and speaking about like romantic relationships now, what do you think about people who are just, I guess, dating around? Like, I feel like that's a big thing in your 20s, right? A lot of people are figuring out themselves, what they like, and a big part of that is romantic relationships and yeah, dating for fun. Other people are dating to get married. Other people were brought up differently as well, different backgrounds and lifestyles. So, yeah.
I think first of all, everyone has their own path. I think there's certainly obviously value to dating, and realizing and identifying what you like, what you don't like, what you can deal with, what you can handle, what you think maybe you can't handle, and there should be sensible sort of boundaries and guidelines for doing that if you're going to do really well. I think I didn't have that. I didn't have the, probably I didn't need the, I call it the luxury, um, or the experience, or I don't know, that wasn't my own path. For whatever reason, it was important, I think, to God, and but when I reflect, it makes sense why it was important for God or for me to, not kind of go through that, and kind of be clear early on. Okay, this is what's up. This is what I had convictions early, right? And I think that's something ultimately we all pray for.
Yeah.
By the time you're hitting 30, that's
Yeah. I think just in your
that's something we
20s,
all pray for.
it's really good to have like clarity and conviction about the work that you want to do for sure, which is a big part of being in your 20s, and also the relationships, both romantic and even friendships, right?
Hmm.
Like just really taking that step further to get clarity and know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it and what is the bigger purpose and vision for your life.
But it comes over time. I
It
think
does.
for whatever reason, my path was slightly different, and
Yeah.
it was a bit weird that maybe a prayer I'd have been praying maybe when I was 30 or like
Late
early
20s. Yeah.
30s. Even earlier, it'd have been answered. So maybe, all this when you're younger and your parents pray for you, maybe the person you marry, blah, blah, blah. So maybe my mom was praying extra or something, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my path was quite different.
Certainly, I mean, I didn't think I was going to get married to you. We used to joke in Bridge House, so I used to joke in Bridge House that I can't wait to see the person Tim Strom marries because his standards are this high, and he was just a very peculiar person. And he knew what he wanted. Here is this like 15, 16-year old, very like focused, ambitious, knows exactly what he wants. He talks about God being his friend. I truly saw that. He was just an overall like great guy. Was very kind and generous and was a people's person, someone that was easy to talk to, was funny. You would help people, you would yeah, share things, you were there for people. Like a really, really, really good friend, right? Like my guy is a solid guy, but I definitely did not think I was going to get married to you. So I do think that from me it was a lot about getting that conviction. And I know even for you, like you encouraged me to
Hmm.
not just take your word for it, right? Not just say because God had spoken to him about us getting married, therefore I was just going to tag along to that. Like it was very important for him and for me to also get my own clarity and conviction before proceeding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think conviction has to be developed on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
For you to have a true partnership. Otherwise, one person, you don't want to be the source of strength. One person for two
Carrying
carrying a two-way
the relationship.
relationship.
Yeah.
That will be very burdensome if you were to do that.
I want to talk about dating. So it's one thing to have conviction, and it's a different thing to like decide to stay committed, right? So with dating, I think it had been about a year, and then you moved back from the UK to Lagos, and so then we were dealing with long distance, and we did long distance for about a year. I mean, our relationship for that year prior was long distance. I was in Reading, you were in Nottingham.
But I guess it's cross country.
Yeah, but that was it was like a 3-hour train and £70.
No, I mean the shift was now
Okay,
cross
yes.
country.
Now we had then gone from just UK taking a train to the 6-hour flights, and we did not see for that entire year.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
And we had both started working.
mm-hmm.
You had another job here in the UK, but you had taken on like a temporary job in Lagos whilst you did your youth service.
Yeah. So yeah.
And I had started working, and then we were, yeah, just navigating, a relationship long distance, being very intentional about, of course, communication and staying in touch, and also just showing up and being present. Like I remember, like you would buy me things, or you would send me
Mm.
like surprise gifts. We were always on the phone to each other a lot. We we're always FaceTiming, which we did a lot, even in uni.
We certainly spoke a lot.
Yeah, but a lot of people in their 20s who think about long distance think that might be a deal breaker. So let's talk a little bit about, from your perspective, you moving back, what were maybe the expectations that you had on our relationship, consciously or not,
Mm.
where you felt like, okay, we really have to push past this year to make it work?
I don't think there were any explicit expectations. I didn't
Expectation.
think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think in part because I thought I was only moving back temporarily for a period of time,
Yeah, you knew you
and
were coming back,
I'd
so.
come back later on. At the time I moved back, I don't remember, my grandpa had just passed away.
Yeah.
So the headspace of coming back in was, okay, coming back in. Shortly after a funeral, this, that, the other. So the headspace was very different. Yeah. Then once that was done, yeah, it was very different. So as I said, that I just kind of, just mentally go back to that time and season. But yeah, no explicit expectations. I
Expectations.
don't think so. I think that would keep talking was a given. I
Mm-hmm.
think it helped that we're in the same sort of similar time zones,
Yeah.
i.e. Nigeria and the UK.
Yeah.
And
Did you have any doubts going into long distance or?
I didn't even think about these labels. I didn't even think about it like
Yeah, it
long
wasn't a long
distance.
distance relationship
I
for
did,
us. Like consciously, obviously, we weren't seeing each other,
yes.
but it was just like, again, a big part of it, I think, is because you were going to eventually be back here, like after the year was done.
Maybe I didn't even know that at the time, but for whatever reason, I wasn't. But like, was I worried? Was I not particularly? Again, that's also one of the benefits of having a sense of conviction. I think
Mm.
is with some things you don't worry as much about it. It almost the mindset I had was almost as was that some things prove themselves out,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I wasn't too worried. We're talking all the time, so we're constantly in touch. Yeah.
And I think for
Did you have
me,
expectations?
I think my expectation was actually that it would make us stronger because I had done long distance in my previous relationship and it was fine. And
So you had experience.
I had
A
some
long
experience.
distance pro.
I had some experience, and so that was really my only expectation. Was like I felt like it would make us stronger, or I wanted it to make us stronger.
Mm.
And I think that we also, even if it wasn't conscious, we definitely took the time to really work on ourselves a lot. I'd probably even say even more than working on our relationship
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
terms of just building
Developing.
character, developing ourselves, knowing what we wanted to do. Of course, at that point in time, we had started working, so we were thinking about the kind of work that we wanted to do. I was sharing about how unhappy I was in that first grad job. You encouraged me through it. We thought about the bigger goals and plans for our lives, the kind
Mm-hmm.
of systems and structures we wanted to put in place to, be in places in our lives within the next sort of 5, 10 years. And yeah, so I think that year was a really good year for us actually. Like we barely had any disagreements. We
Any structural disagreements?
Yeah,
Any seismic?
yeah.
Unfortunately.
And then when you came back, we like instantly picked things up and just
Yeah.
kind of rolled with it again. So we did that long distance. She came back, and then we went into year three. So this is now 2 years. And I don't know if you think about like our 8 year relationship, if you can pinpoint your hardest year. Mine was definitely year three. I think when you came back, the first maybe like 6, 7 months were like fantastic. I was just loving it. And then, yeah, nearly 3 years in, I was like, oh boy,
It's
it's
getting tougher.
it's getting tougher. And we hadn't experienced that before, right? We'd
No,
had
we
like a
hadn't.
really good easy, sort of smooth sailing relationship up until that point. So
Mm.
I was very worried, and I wanted to call it quits a few times. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I know from your perspective,
So for context, year three was what,
year
18?
three was 2018.
18.
Yeah. And I did lots of traveling. That was when I really like, I was doing lots of like solo traveling and traveling with some friends. And yeah, we were just, I felt like that year we were really put through the ringer. And I'm not even really sure why, but I want to talk to you about, yeah, surviving really tough times or just staying committed
So,
through really tough times.
yeah, so put your 2018 in context. 2018, I started working at a global bank, and I'd also started the CFA program, going through the exams. And so that
I also
was,
had like
and you also had the
ACA
ACA
exams.
exams.
Yeah.
So by definition, those things require a level of focus and just, putting your head down to get things done, and a bit less faffing around. Not that you're faffing around, but you have less of you available for stuff. And so I think that contributed a little bit.
To like the stress of the relationship.
Stress or pressure. I mean, I remember. I mean, there's. I mean, I remember. Coming back, going like 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. the days, and speaking to you between 11 and 11:15. I've been like, I'm tired. I'll
Yeah.
talk later, and next day start again. And I think that was one of the times I felt like beyond conviction, actually seeing the conviction play out practically in terms of you being, okay, we can do life together. Like, can you go through tough? Can you survive? Can you go through tough moments, times, and seasons?
Yeah. You were a trooper because I was.
Yeah, I was definitely a trooper.
I was not a believer. I think then I I questioned the conviction at that point.
Mm.
And I think that's something that people may not necessarily know or even think about. I think a lot of people might have the assumption that, especially as like a young Christian couple, like, okay, you guys want to be together, you've both heard from God, this is where it's headed, and maybe you think it's going to be, at least for the most part, like smooth sailing. But I definitely questioned that year, like, are we actually going to end up together? Is this really the plan that God has for me? Is this the best that God has to give to me? And we had really difficult conversations and arguments, and just in a sense like really fighting for our relationship. I felt, to like make it work, like push through this really hard moment, or push through this uncomfortable feeling, or push through
Phase.
yeah, this phase where it's not rosy and
But
it's
but
not
did you
always
did you understand
pretty.
at the time? Again, a lot of things comes down to perspective. At the time, did you understand or see it as a phase?
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing. I didn't think this was like it's like the be all and end all, because I had seen where we had come from, right? We had a
Okay.
2+ year at that point worth of history, and that being like relatively like smooth sailing, I think really helped me to see who you were, and also obviously like say this is who I want to be with. So even when those tough time came, I think for me it was like trying to remember, like, this is my guy. This is a really solid guy. Like all the things I said about him earlier, he's really nice and kind. He's good-hearted. He's funny. He thinks the best of me. He genuinely wants to make me happy. And so I felt like I had to tell myself that a lot more, that you're not trying to get on my nerves, or you're not trying to
But
annoy me. You were just, yeah, we were figuring out
there were
new
a lot of
things.
transitions. So there were transitions career-wise. There were transitions personally. I mean, at that point in time, we've been together for like I think roughly 3 years.
3 years, 3 plus
And
years.
when I had the chance at the time to speak to married couples and they talk about how their wives changed, I felt like I was in a relationship and I was already seeing that already.
Yeah.
Just so I did a number of things. When was SSI born?
Yeah, 2017.
2017.
By 18, I started doing the
18
conferences.
more.
My book came out.
Yeah. So there were a lot of, we were both doing getting into different things, which meant more time, energy, effort, and just getting into our own. And it's almost like adjusting to that. How do you balance that? So I think those contributed to it. The thing to be mindful of is that with the measure of success, you also need to build characters to go with it, and so and you think about that even from a relationship perspective, that character is it goes together. So the more success you have, the more character
You
you
need to
know
build.
you need to
Yeah.
build to go with it.
Yeah. Because as you're growing in your relationship, you're ideally growing in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Or you're
Well,
developing
as you're growing in
yourself,
yourself, you should be growing in your
growing in your
relationship.
relationship.
The two should go together.
And so there's a clash if the growth in yourself is, is not quite like on the same level as the growth in your relationship, or where the character that you're building personally is different to how you're showing up in your relationship.
And it's a two-way street. So the character is not just for you, it's also for your partner. So for you, whilst you're developing character in terms of how to manage that, how to carry it, for me, I was further developing character in terms of, say, security, or say,
like financially,
or anyhow, financially or generally. It goes both ways, and then it then puts you through the tests of anything of things like fruits of the spirit, or Christ in you. How Christ-like are you?
yeah.
As that thing they always say about people in terms of money doesn't change people, it only exposes people. So it's that's
And
important to
substitutes
build.
money for success as well, like
Or yeah, it doesn't
success
it doesn't
doesn't
change, it just
change.
exposes what's actually under the hood. So developing character, I think, is very important, as both individuals, as one individual transitions, or as both individuals transition in the relationship, because it changes over time.
Yeah.
Even in a marriage, and for most people that have been in long relationships that have experienced that on some degree, because the young 16-year-old in Breach House was no longer with the person at that time. I remember saying to Vicky that, you used to listen a lot more.
Yeah, because when you met me, I
you know,
would say that I hadn't found my voice, and then I found my voice.
if otherwise, all she wanted to do was talk.
I was.
And that's fine. It's okay to talk, but I think again, the ability to listen,
Which is very important for you.
which is very important.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not. I think my view is, even in a marriage, I'm not going to struggle to be heard or to be the head, if that makes sense. If you're trying to beat your chest and say, I'm King Kong, maybe you're not really king. You get what I mean? Like, I know, like, if you're a kind of cook, you're going to be a kind of cook. It's up to the people around you to recognize that and benefit from that, or not. So it's
And I would say that
success, character.
Yeah, and I would say that I think for me, what helped us actually get over the hump, like actually move from that really tough year and kind of back on like our normal ship, smooth sailing year 4, was having like really tough and hard conversations. And I felt like that turning point for me was like God pruning me a little bit, right? Like, what are the
So someone had to do it.
what are the things what are the things that you don't need to have in your life, especially as you guys go further in, or start heading towards marriage, like really assessing where I was at that point in my life. And I felt like the Holy Spirit was definitely prompting me to really, take a step back, gain some perspective, and also realize the person that I was, and if that, if I was going to be happy with the person that I was becoming at that point. And so I had to, kind of step back and also do some internal work in building out the person that I wanted to be, not just for you, but also for myself, right? And so that, I think, was very important practically for us to actually get over the hump. Like, I think we had this really long conversation where we walked across the O2, and you kind of told me a lot of really difficult things to hear at the time, which was important and necessary because,
maybe I should have done that earlier. I was always very mindful of your feelings. I can look at you a little bit, and people say the word baby in a relationship, things like that. It's just like some things, you just do some things, and I just kind of look at you like, you shouldn't have done that, but I'll overlook it, or not make a big deal out of it, or just let it go, or whatever. And it's like, actually, hold on, listen, this, that, and that's something I hadn't historically done well, and I realized actually it was important for your own growth as well.
For sure.
beyond your feelings. You do need to grow up.
Yeah, and it was tough to hear, but it definitely helped us. Like I understood where you were and where you also saw me in our relationship, and it was kind of like, this is where I would like us to be, or I would like you to be, and so what are we going to do for you to get there? And yeah, I remember that conversation. I was like quiet and just reflecting, like, wow,
And you're right. You're quiet. Oh. He's quiet. Ooh.
I was just really reflecting and thinking very deeply about what you were saying, because it was tough. And I remember you saying, you did want to like protect my feelings, but I was like, no, like I want you to speak up. Like you're in this relationship as well. Like you have a voice here. It matters. And so,
Of course, I have a voice and it matters.
yeah, well, like I wasn't hearing a lot of that, and I think a lot of it also took me by surprise a little bit, because we had just been, I thought things were fine. Like things are great for me, like personally. And so I almost thought that personal things were great, like translated to the relationship, which wasn't necessarily the case. Right.
No, I mean, it was
like just in terms of like, just because things were great for us individually didn't mean that for together
yeah, agreed,
things were great. That's what I mean. So
agreed.
I was thinking life is great, we're good, I'm in a great relationship, like I'm following my passion with SSI, like I'm figuring out work, but like generally life is good. And then we had this really tough conversation, and I was like, oh, maybe this relationship isn't going as well as I thought.
No, but again, see, it's how you look at it. You have a tough conversation doesn't mean.
No, in terms of how you felt.
Okay, the things I was saying.
Yeah, the things you were saying.
In terms of what could be better, etc., etc.
Yeah, so I didn't. I wasn't.
You weren't tracking that.
Yeah, I wasn't tracking that. Yeah, so in my head, things were very differently to how you were. So we were almost like out of sync, and we had to kind of get back in sync and get back in alignment. Yeah. There was something you were saying.
The other thing I was saying was that, in any relationship or in any venture that you feel God has called you to, you have a level of conviction around. As Bucky was saying earlier, it will almost always be tested. And the test does a number of things. It serves, it gives you the chance to prove to yourself as well that, the strength of your convictions, but also, in terms of handling it, because Bucky spoke about that difficult year, it positions you for how you handle it. And so whilst on your side, you kind of handled this slightly differently. I had a view that, we will come out of this. It'll be, do you know what I mean? It will work. And obviously you pray through it, That I had a sense of conviction doesn't mean that there weren't battles to fight, or you're not with her, just generally, like in terms of making, like it wasn't doesn't mean it was smooth sailing. Right, you had to pray through. I remember one day I woke up and I had a dream, and you married someone else. I was like, what kind of dream is this? And I woke up and started praying. I was like, so with conviction, the more grand the conviction is, to some degree, means that the more you'd have to fight for it in prayer, in just sticking with God to make sure it happens.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, I mean, any time I felt unsure, I felt concerned. Again, it's for me, it's my experience was, who did you get the conviction from?
Yeah,
I kind of take it back to your source. And again, one of the reasons I feel it's important to have a sense of conviction from somewhere, in my case, from God, through faith. I think at those moments, that's kind of where you go back to.
Yeah.
Or depend on. I mean, this is what I used to say when we're in Bridge House in terms of the what and the why. Anything you have, the what is only as important as the why.
Yeah.
You have the pillars. So your life, your career, whatever it is, your relationships, think about it as a chair, and the pillars that hold it up. Those 4 pillars, and those are your whys. And so that chair, that relationship, that business, whatever it is only as strong as the whys that keep it standing. So same thing in a relationship.
Yeah. But I think practically speaking, that was, for me, it was important to just go through that period knowing that tough times were going to come. I think in the beginning...
It was kind of training for you, maybe a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. I think I was
Little training
a
doesn't
little
hurt.
bit naive, right? Because we had had such good years before. When the tough time came, I was very like unaware, like caught in like I was like, what is going on? Like what is happening? Like why is the boat rocking so much? And so it was just a lot of like talking through things, really trying to figure out like what exactly is the issue here.
Mm.
And then we kind of made our way past that year and thankfully got into another year. But then there were a couple of times, within our relationship, I think when I was again still like, yeah, I can't do this, you guys. Like it's too hard. I remember journaling one time after we had like a really big
Mm.
fight, and I said, I think getting out will be easier than staying in
Mm.
because like it's not supposed to be this hard. I was like, it's never been this hard.
Mm.
And it only felt like it was getting harder. And then this was around the period. So I had traveled with my friend to Thailand for about 3 weeks. We had had this massive argument. I had said, let's have a break. So before this, we had had like maybe 2 or 3 breaks where we don't speak for like a week or
Let's just take some
2 weeks.
time.
Yeah, let's just take
Like,
some time,
yeah.
which Timothy never liked. I felt like I needed space.
Mm.
So whenever things got like really, really tough, I would just be like, yo, let's just take some time.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell him maybe 2 weeks. He would be like 3 days. I would be like, no, a week.
We'll negotiate. We agree on the time.
And then sometimes he would like call me. And I'm like, you're not supposed to be calling me like, word a break. But anyway, so we had this really big argument, and I was going to Thailand for 3 weeks. Funny enough, we had gone to New York before that and had a fantastic time in New York. And that was our first trip together. And I came back, and then I went to Thailand. Before I went to Thailand, we had this big fight. I was like, okay, time out. Let's just not speak this entire trip, which is really tough because I was having a fantastic time, and obviously I only wanted to share it with you. But yeah, we didn't speak. And so I came back after about 3.5 weeks, and yeah, I think you called me like from the airport, and we had said like, okay, let's see, like as soon as you land, let me know, something of the sort. And we had basically arranged that when I came back, you weren't going to come over to mine. I think I was going to meet you at London Bridge in a restaurant or cafe or something like that. And then what happened?
Yeah, so we agreed to meet. I think it was a Sunday evening,
It was
6
6
p.m.
p.m. Mm-hmm.
And I get there and like, okay, it's kind of like 6 and it's kind of like quarter past, and it's like half past. And at that point, I'm like, are you coming? Are you not coming? What's going on?
Yeah.
And apparently you'd overslept.
Yeah, so I came back from my flight. It was like a 14-hour flight. I thought I'll take a quick nap and then
Yeah, it wasn't the same
wake
day.
up. It was the same day.
Was it the same day?
Yeah, the same day I got back. Yeah, because I got back on the Sunday and we went to work on Monday. No, I had Monday off, but then yeah, so I had overslept from my nap. I think I woke up at 7 to like your call, like your second or third call, and you were like, "Oh, I'm at London Bridge. Where are you?" And I was like, crap, I'm just waking up and I need to shower. I was like, I will run down as fast as I can. I
So
felt so
7 turned
bad.
to like 6 turns like what, 8?
8, yeah. So I got to him for 8. You guys, when I tell you this man, he was so he was so quiet when I came to see him.
I was calm.
Timothy is generally quite calm. You guys probably are getting this already, but I am definitely like the louder one, and he's more quiet and calm and chill, and nothing really rocks his boat too much anyway. So for me being 2 hours late after this 3.5 weeks of not speaking, and then you see me, I mean, he's not greeting me with open arms or anything. Let's not think that he wasn't like, oh, I'm so excited to see you, like I'm just grateful you're here. Like, no, you were still very much like, okay.
I wasn't shouting at you or anything like that.
No, but you were like, okay, and I think it was then you wanted to hear what I had to say, or we had just come to like, clear the air and smooth things out. I had come with the agenda to like break up. I was like, you know
Oh,
what?
really? Oh,
I was like, you know what?
God.
This break, as much as it like hurts me, I just think that we don't need to be together anymore.
So wait, hold on. So you did tell me that before over the phone, and, and I was
No,
waiting for
I
two
needed to
hours.
like see you and maybe like see what the vibes was. No, okay, but listen, we were having
See
this
what the vibes.
conversation, right, in this like restaurant type place, and we were getting into like another type of fight, and I think I was like,
So
okay,
there's a
this is too
season. We had a
much.
lot of miscommunication.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
like
just
it was
clashing a
really,
lot.
yeah, it was really weird. And I wonder why. Yeah, it was very. We just had a lot of miscommunication, and it was really confusing because we hadn't had that before. So
Mhm.
there was a real sense of like what's going on here.
Mhm.
Um, I felt. I mean, I felt okay. What is going on here? And my mindset was to kind of break past or push past that,
End it.
rather than my philosophy on life is that create life, don't let life create you. Right. So if something's you change it, don't change because of it.
Yeah, my
But,
me changing this was like breaking
Yes,
up.
yes, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Me changing is change what is making me feel change what is making me feel some kind of way.
Yeah, that for
Or
me
so that was
changing what
very
was making me feel
good to know.
was like
So,
breaking up. I was
so
like, I can't do
yeah,
this anymore.
yeah.
It's just too tough. We were arguing much more than we were like loving at each other, and I was like, yeah, 23 at this point, something like that. So I was like, if we end it here, like it's been a good run, homie. Like love and light. I was
But
like,
again,
love and
I did say
light.
to you, I think I said that evening that if that's what you genuinely feel and that's what you want,
Uh-uh.
no, I did say that if that's genuinely what you want,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, but there's no there's no coming back. There's no like I was like so I was like better think clearly, better be sure.
I was like,
And
I'm sure. And this man, he was not having it. He was
I
like,
wasn't that, but the reason I said the reason for that is because, and I can be painfully final like
yeah,
on things like my drawing the line genuinely is drawing the line. I
yeah.
rarely go back on it. So
Which I knew. And I was
um,
like, no, yes, I know this. And I want to break up. And Timsha was like, I
are
don't
you
think you know
sure? I don't
what you're
think you know what
saying.
you. Yeah, I got the sense. I
You're like, I'm
think
not sure you know what you're saying. Like, you don't realize. And I was like, no, I do. Like, I've had a
that
14
did
hour
you.
flight to think about this. Like, I'm pretty sure that I want to end it. And you were like, maybe you should take some more time to think about it. I was like, I don't want to think about this.
So
And then
what ultimately was agreed
I think you then said we should pray about it. You were like, well, we didn't get into this relationship on our own, so we're not like
just on our own,
just on our own. So we're not getting out of it
just on our
just on
own.
our own. So go and think about
Reflect,
it and
yeah,
reflect and
beyond
pray
just you
about it.
and how you feel.
Hmm.
Again to that conviction. So what was that? Do you get what I mean? Like
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think that again, like with your conviction, it will be tested, right? And just in your Christian walk, like if you say you have faith in God, it will be tested. And
mhm.
so those were moments of test for us, and like thankfully we passed it. Barely. I felt like well, I felt like I felt that yeah, it was really, really, really tough. But then I stayed. I didn't break up. We never actually broke up because Timcha just wouldn't. He won't let me go, y'all. He won't let me go. But okay, before we end, I want to talk about like making the transition from dating into getting married, because when we got together, I think by like year two, year three, we had some friends from university who were getting married at like 22, 23, and some of them we had even been together longer than they were together, and then they kept on saying like, oh, you guys are next, you guys are next. And we were just like, no, we're not, please stop. And we were definitely both aligned on the fact that we didn't want to get married that young, even if we wanted to get married younger still, but definitely not that young. But let's talk a little bit about, yeah, we got engaged at 24. What was that process for you coming into the realization? Because I used to tell my friends that I felt like Tim Joe would get there before me, like there in terms
Did
of
we
being
get engaged
ready.
at 24? That feels early.
Yeah, we got engaged just before both of us. Well, before our 25th, I should say. So just before 25.
Okay, that's
Let's
well,
say
I think
25.
closer to
Let's
25
say
than
25. We
24.
got engaged at 25. But yeah, so what was that process for you?
The process of getting engaged or moving.
Yeah, like moving from she's my girlfriend to I want to wife her up.
Also, following that difficult year,
I was like, year five. Oof.
for me, it was okay. This is like you've had this sense of conviction or this conviction historically and over time, but again,
Mm.
it's at the end of the day, you're not going to marry conviction. You're not going to marry potential. It's kind of what
Mm.
is in front of you today.
Mm-hmm.
Can you deal with this? Can you live with her? Can this work? And so for me, it was at the point where beyond just a conviction or potential, I started to see that potential in practically.
Meaning.
And
Meaning what? Tell the people.
meaning you start to see
The growth.
the
The
potential
growth over the last
practically.
five
You start to
years.
see the growth in character. You start to see the growth in maturity. You start to see the growth in, fruits of the
Patience.
spirit, patience, or, other things. But it's not just an idea.
It's a
it's a
reality.
reality. It's
Yeah.
a, if I'm late for something, does the sky fall down, or does Buki just, brush it off her shoulder and
Because I
is
don't
able
like
to
being late.
manage it. Buki really doesn't like being late. Like
I
5 minutes
really
late can
don't
be a
like.
capital crime. It used to be a capital
It used
sin.
to be.
It's
I've
like
calmed
5 minutes is
down because you
you
guys,
know.
the growth. Okay, it's the growth.
You say that in this same podcast. We just spoke about how she was 2 hours late for something because she overslept.
Yeah, which is
But we're
not
different. We
normal.
handle things differently, which is certainly not normal. But but the point is, it was just ironic. 5 minutes versus
Yeah,
two
yeah.
hours. Anyway, but yet seeing that the potential, seeing it in practice, right? Because it's the practice that you're going to live with. It's
Yeah.
not right. Yeah. So that was one of the first triggers to actually thinking, okay,
It's
let's
time.
not even it's time. Let's do this. Or let's get the ball rolling. Or let's make this happen.
Mm.
As to when to make it happen, I was like, yeah, yeah, whenever, someday, at some
Someday.
before Jesus comes.
Wow.
And I think then at some point in time, my sister from Lyle called me and kind of said, what's going on with you and Bookie? If you're not going to marry this girl, let her go.
Mate, someone else will.
If you're not going to marry this girl, let her go. And I was like, okay. And then later on, I can't remember what year was that. At some point in time, I felt a strong, it was just really just strong sense of conviction, like, like do it, like it's time,
Mm.
get married. It's kind of time.
A conviction from God.
Definitely a conviction from God. And I mean, the actual, process was, I remember it was a Saturday. I'd been listening to there's this really great lady. Her name is Mrs. Jumaka Adinowo. I was listening to like a program of hers, and she had like some prayer meeting, which I dialed into. Afterwards, I just continued praying on my own. Later that evening, I just got this real sense of boldness,
Mm.
very strong sense of boldness. And following that, I just knew that I knew that I knew, and I just gave my dad a call and said, what would you think if this happened?
Which is how Timster talks. He didn't say, "Oh, I would like to propose to Bookie." He said, "What would you think?"
What would you think if I went ahead and did this? How would you think? What would you think about that? And
And then
and,
you
and
got
that was
his
the
blessing.
start of the process.
Yeah.
He advised me to jump on a flight and come meet your dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, surely I don't need to. I can just zoom him.
Absolutely
I
not.
was like, I was like,
This is in 2021,
this
so
is.
COVID had happened, was still ish happening. It was
We're
still
coming out of
also
it
happening
slowly.
slowly. Yeah.
So yeah, he was like, I think you should get on a plane.
Come meet my dad and
Yeah.
ask him in person in his face for his
Yeah.
daughter's hand. And
So.
then my father's only daughter, so was it an easy yes?
Sorry?
Was it an easy yes?
It wasn't terribly difficult. I won't say easy, but it wasn't harder than it wasn't unduly difficult. I don't think he made it difficult for me.
My
You know,
dad's a nice guy.
my dad.
Also,
It's so funny, especially the relationship with her dad. Because I'd obviously been around for quite some time. I think the most I've probably spoken to him for was like maybe 2 minutes in duration.
my dad wanted to believe that like I was not in a relationship. So my parents knew, they definitely knew that we were together. I was in a relationship. My mom loved him. My dad loved him. Well, he liked you at least. Right. But he
But
didn't want to necessarily like acknowledge the relationship
mm,
unless he knew for sure this was marriage, right? So he didn't want, yeah, he didn't want to, I guess, maybe be overly excited, like, oh, this guy that my daughter has been with for a number of years is definitely her partner. Like, even when I told him we're going to New York together, he was just kind of like, is that a good idea? I was like, yeah, like, we're in a committed, serious relationship. We were 4 years in, I think, at that point. And so he did give his blessing because he thought he and my mom had discussed it anyway. So,
um, but that day when we spoke, I think I can't maybe like 2 hours, definitely over an hour.
mm-hmm.
We spoke for quite some time. Like, whoa, like
And you
where
guys
has all
were,
this been all the while? It's like
yeah,
we had
because,
a proper conversation. We spoke about
yeah.
like work, like prop,
Mm-hmm.
intellectually engaging. Like yeah.
Which
I
is
was
what
like,
Tim Sprague gets really like
I was
excited about.
good conversations. I was like,
Yeah,
we should keep this up.
yeah.
Good to speak again.
And he and my dad are very similar. Like they have
Yeah.
the same name and initials, and they actually have a lot in common. I think you even have, well, I think you had more in common with my mom, but you
Mm.
definitely have like a really strong relationship with my dad, and yeah, it's great. So
Yeah, it is.
it's good to see. Okay, as I round up, is there anything you want to say to just young people in their 20s navigating relationships? Like we've talked about getting clarity and conviction. We've talked about long distance, pushing through, growing in our own selves, like
Mm.
having our own ambition, then coming together when like it's the right time to be getting married. Um yeah, so any final words?
Oh gosh, I'm by no means a relationship expert, but
No, we're not. We're really not.
but I mean, what's worked for me and what's helped me, I think, really benefited from having faith and conviction in God. I've benefited from having mentors or people I can speak to
For sure.
who've had long relationships, married for a long time, and I can just get some perspective from. Also, great friends and family to connect with as well. So those have been key, and I importantly, having someone with who is actually even worth fighting for. Most people in a relationship, if your partner says they want to break up, you're like, okay, cool, bye.
Yeah.
But having someone you think is worth fighting for
Mm.
in the first place is probably a good place to start,
Yeah.
and then you add the others to it.
Yeah. I think I definitely want to emphasize the point around not doing life alone when you're in a relationship. Like it's very easy, I think, especially with maybe new relationships, to isolate yourself from other people,
Mm,
but counsel is something that has been really important to us in the growth of our relationship and making sure that we are accountable to people, but we're also getting like spiritually sound advice and just wisdom from people who have been there before. So, including like our pastors, really good friends as well, who can speak to each of us and tell us how it is. Some of our
yeah.
best friends are people who we've had those like conversations when it's gotten tough and they've been able to actually speak
Mm,
over us and speak words of encouragement and help us navigate those times. So,
mhm.
those really, really like strong relationships also play a part in us making it through.
Definitely. I mean, as you speak, there's a scripture that comes to mind that says that
Uh, Going.
in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. It's very true.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Awesome. Well, we're going to stop here. I just want to say a big thank you to my husband
You're welcome.
for coming on the show. This was a really good chat and conversation. It's always good to like reflect in very many ways. Even though we've been together for 8 years, it still feels like day one with you always. And so yeah, I'm excited for the next 80 years of our lives together and beyond.
As
And
many as God will give us.
as many as God will give us. So thank you guys so much for being here, for listening. Please do share this if you enjoyed it. Leave us comments, subscribe, leave us ratings
Yes,
and
please
reviews.
subscribe.
Yeah. And let us know if you want my dear sweetheart to be back again. Otherwise, I'll catch you in my next episode. All right? Bye, guys.